Okay, so hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome today at our OWASP Algiers chapter, where we'll be presenting to you our webinar today about exploring cybersecurity careers and certifications. We'll be covering a couple of topics from introducing information security, cybersecurity, and then delving into the OT security side, and finalizing with GRC, blue teaming, red teaming, and a couple of advices, resources where you can practice, learn, and enhance your skills. And by the end of this webinar, we'll give you a couple of surprises and another, let's say, an exciting announcement. So, speakers for today, it's mostly the OWASP Algiers chapter board. I am Taher ELHOUARI, alongside with Abduraouf Ben Qaida, Mehdi, Nacer KERKAR, and Hichem BELGUENDOUZ. I'm the chapter leader, OWASP Algiers chapter. I'm involved with a couple of organizations. I have done a couple of work in cybersecurity, some certifications, and so on. So the summary of this webinar, we'll start with an introduction to InfoSec and cybersecurity. We'll talk a little bit about privacy and data protection, since there is, like lately, it's a trending field. There is also, we'll discuss an IT security roadmap alongside some general careers. And then we'll start specializing in different fields and domains like OT security, ICS, SCADA systems, GRC, governance, risk and compliance, offensive security and red teaming, defensive security and blue teams. And then we'll talk a little bit of some cybersecurity certifications, like the certifications that are highly in demand in the industry concerning multiple careers. And we'll share with you another roadmap, or let's say a certification plan that shows most of the certifications that exist in the field. Some tips into networking in the industry, since it's so important. A couple of resources, platforms to practice the things that you will see today. Some project ideas that we suggest that you try to work on, especially if you are a student or recently graduating from a university or college. And we'll share with you a couple of surprises at the end. So, introduction to information security and cybersecurity. So, I know most of you probably are already working in the field, but there are some people that are really trying to shift their career into the cybersecurity world. Some of them are in IT, some of them are in computer science. But the surprising thing is that we witnessed in this field that people, even the guys who work in, let's say, finance and human resources and so on, are also interested in like doing a career shift into information security and cybersecurity. So we hope that this webinar will be enriching for them, providing the multiple details and clarifications that they probably need. By the way, guys, you can post your comments and questions in the Google Meet application. Our colleague Hichem Berbesh will take care of your questions, and he will try to present them at the end of the webinar so we can answer each one of you. So, what is information security? Basically, it refers to the practice of protecting information, whether it's a digital information, an information on a physical paper, any type of information is somehow related to information security. So it's about protecting this information from multiple, let's say, risks or threats like disclosure, disruption, destruction, and so on. So in terms of IT security or information security, like in our context, it's about implementing a couple of measures to ensure confidentiality, and integrity, and availability of information. So when information security started back in the couple of years ago, it started with one of the most famous concepts, which is the CIA triad. It's about confidentiality, availability, and integrity, like you see from the side. But then information security, of course, has its own revolution, its own development, and so on. So instead of having only 3 pillars that information security focus on, now we have 5 pillars. So now it became CIAAN. We have 2 new additions, which is authenticity and the non-repudiation of information. So in terms of cybersecurity, it simply refers to the practice of protecting computer systems, networks, and infrastructures from the different types of threats and attacks. So while information security focuses on protecting all forms of information, like I gave you an example, whether it's a physical paper or digital paper, so regardless of its medium. But cybersecurity specifically deal with secure digital assets that are cyber connected. So the simple difference between them is that cybersecurity is part of information security. So to simplify, information security is the big field. Like we have computer science, we also have information security. So in terms of the CIA triad and the CIAN triad and so on, these principles are the, let's say, the bare fundamentals that we built on our information security systems. It's how we secure data and systems nowadays. Like if we talk a little bit about cyber and information security, how it started and so on, we can see this little picture in here. Started around the 1989 with the first worm, which was called Morris, and then it was developed going by the virus of I Love You. It was one of the most famous viruses back then in the 20s, by the beginning of 20s, and then the rise in credit card cyber attacks in the 2007 attacks on government infrastructures like the USA, China, and then the Stuxnet attack, which probably will our colleague Mehdi will talk about in his slide of OT security. And then we have other attacks that was so advanced, like ransomwares, malwares, spywares, and so on. So cybersecurity is now sophisticated, whether in terms of defense or offense. And this what we will be discussing today. So what about privacy and data protection? Because information security is about protecting information systems and information as well. But we have another field that specializes in protecting the data inside those systems, which we call privacy and data protection. So privacy and data protection, it simply involves safeguarding and protecting the individual's personal information from the different threats, of course, based on the CIA triad in relation with the information security field. So it simply includes the implementing of measures, security controls, and so on to ensure that the personal data of people and citizens and the, let's say, governments and so on, it is in a protected manner and confidential as well. So this is what privacy and data protection is about in a quick word. So in terms of IT security careers and roadmap, okay, so now you are interested, you want to start into this field, you want to practice, we will show you a couple of resources and so on, but let's discuss how careers in cybersecurity or IT security in general, because if we try to mix between InfoSec and CyberSec, we can just simply say IT security, information technology security. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples into the most famous roles inside the IT security. I know there are thousands of specialties, thousands of roles. Some of them are generic and standard roles in the industry, and the others are very specific to each organization. So if we talk about offensive security, most people start as ethical hackers. Well, of course, you gotta start as an engineer or something like that. But in terms of offensive security, most people start as ethical hacker, and then they try to firstly learn about ethical hacking techniques, tools, and so on, and then leveling up to becoming a specialist inside the thing of offensive security, whether it's vulnerability assessment, so you're going to become a vulnerability assessor, whether it's penetration testing, the most famous job in the industry because people tend to see it as fun, but trust me, there are other roles that are really fun inside this industry. We have an OffSec specialist who is probably, let's say, a little bit advanced than a penetration tester, and the most elite guys that we have in offensive security are the red team operators. You will see more details about this with Hichem BELGUENDOUZ in a second. In terms of defensive security, most people start as an engineer. It is one of the most go-to fields for people who graduate from colleges and universities. So most people start as an IT security engineer. Then obviously they're gonna work with SOC and SOC teams and so on. We will uncover that inside another part of this webinar. So they can start also by going in a role as a SOC analyst, and then they can specialize, level up their skills, have more knowledge, more certifications, and so on. So they might join a CERT or a C-CERT as an operator or as an analyst. And obviously, after specializing in a couple of defensive security fields, you might become a defier specialist. specialist, which is digital forensics and incident response specialist. And the most elite guys, like a way or another, they are so famous in the defensive world. Like in the offense, we have the red team operators. They sound like Superman. And it's the same thing in terms of defensive security. We have threat hunters. Now, in terms of GRC and management, which is governance, risk management, compliance, and so on, like management roles, generally they start as a risk analyst, and then they advance a little bit and become a security auditor. And then probably as a security manager, you manage a team or something similar, and probably a director. And obviously the, let's say the top job of this field would be a CISO, which is a Chief Information Security Officer, or a VP of security, a Vice President of security, or something in between. So I added this slide as an extra thing to show you that cybersecurity is not really only about having the hard skills. So let's say you are so good in programming languages, you handle different technologies, different tools, and so on. But trust me, this is not enough, and it will not take you to higher places unless you add a couple of other, let's say, soft skills, because like you know, or probably already know, there are soft skills and hard skills. So in cybersecurity, the hard skills are all about learning how to hack, how to defend, how to implement something, how to audit a system, and so on. But soft skills is about communicating well, being able to do an impact by going through the teamwork process, being able to present an idea, and so on. So obviously in cybersecurity, one of the most important traits is the love of information technology, because like we all know, if you don't love the field that you work in, you won't really succeed in such field. And cybersecurity requires some sort of dedication, some sort of love and caring, and so on, in terms of keeping continuous development and continuous enhancement of your skills. So this is one of the most important skills to acquire, especially if you are trying to begin in such a journey. And also we have the in-depth knowledge, obviously, of cross platforms and cybersecurity, which is hard skills. But in terms of soft skills, you will have analytical eye, you will have problem solving skills, you gotta be a good communicator, you gotta be able to present a couple of subjects, and so on. So all of these skills will make you successful in a journey inside this world. So now in terms of a roadmap, like I know this is probably so generic. Some of you started in the middle, some of you started from the end somehow. But in terms of IT security, going some sort of from zero to hero, there are some steps that you gotta follow if you want to really succeed and make a positive impact for your profile and inside our industry and community. So in most cases, if you are not really familiar with information technology, computer science, and so on, so in case of no background in such thing, I would hugely recommend you to start with the CompTIA A+ course or training and the CS50 course. I believe it's from the Harvard University, where it's going to teach you computer science, algorithms, and so on. So it will give you the fundamentals that you need inside this IT world. And obviously, if you already have this required skills, then you can jump directly here. So learning how to Google and having the hacker mindset is the first thing that will define your success in this industry, because like we all know, cybersecurity in general, whether it's InfoSec, IT, OT, or so on, it's all about searching and looking for information. It's about keeping up to date with the industry. It's about keeping continuous development, enhancement of skills, and so on. So you gotta have this particular, let's say, hacker mindset. So learning how to Google and learning how to search is one of the most important things in such industry. So after you acquire the IT and computer science fundamentals, you gotta try to learn how to use Google, how to look up for information. Like some of you already probably heard of OWASP Algiers chapter because of me or my other colleagues of the board or the others, but some of you probably don't know even what OWASP is. So Google is your go-to place. So you gotta be able to look up an information inside Google. So now in terms of technical and real skills, it's about computer networking services and protocols. So you can't really work in cybersecurity if you can't at least understand what a switch does or a hub or what what is an IPv4, an IPv6, and so on. So learning these fundamentals will be a huge addition for your profile. So you can start, or what I recommend is going through the CompTIA Network Plus or the N Plus, which will give you the bare minimum in terms of computer networking. You can also supplement it with the CCNA of Cisco. It's a little bit advanced than the Network Plus, but it's going to be useful for you. Now, if you have learned computer networking, or you already know networking protocol, services, and the basics, then you can jump into systems, architectures, and administration, because as a penetration tester, you're going to be dealing with Linux operating systems, Windows servers, and so on. If you are a security engineer, then you will be securing these systems, whether you are, so I'm trying to say, whether you are an auditor, an analyst, an engineer, or a hacker, you gotta understand how a system works, its functions, its calls, its systems, internals, its services, and so on. So the best place to start with is CompTIA Linux Plus in terms of Linux operating systems. And there is the MCSA of Microsoft to learn about Windows, Windows Server, Active Directory, and so on. Now, in terms of coding and scripting languages, I know there are too many languages that could be helpful for you inside such field, but my advice for you is you gotta pick one language of them. You gotta handle this language so good, at least having the ability to create, to automate a task or create a small script for your daily job or something. So the best language, let's say, in terms of ethical hacking and IT security in general, is Python. It's one of the most famous languages in this field, and it is super helpful. Now, if you can add the other languages, that would be extremely helpful. I know coding and scripting languages are not super important in information technology security, especially if you work, let's say, in GRC or something. But if you are trying to specialize in penetration testing, or let's say application security and something similar, then programming languages is somehow a must for you. So having the ability to also deep dive into bash scripting, PowerShell, PHP for web applications, C#, C++, and so on, all of these languages or all of this knowledge will obviously help you to advance quickly in such field. Now, if you have acquired the basics of computer science, also the basics of IT, computer networking, systems, and coding, now I believe for you it's time to jump straight into cybersecurity in general. So you can start with the CompTIA Security Plus. I highly recommend this one. You can then start with, let's say, the CEH or the CISA Plus or something. And I have a little advice, a little surprise for you by the end. I'm going to announce it by the end of this webinar. So now, introduction to OT security, ICS, IoT, SCADA, and so on with Mehdi KERKAR. I'm going to leave you to him now.
Thank you, Taher. Let me just share the slides, my part.
Thanks, Mehdi. Go ahead.
Tell me when the slide is appearing.
Yeah, it's good. Go ahead.
Good. For me, I'm presenting myself, Mehdi Nacer KERKAR, specialist in IT, OT, cybersecurity, with over 5 years in consulting and cybersecurity services. Board member of OWASP Algiers, member of the IC2 Algeria chapter, and global member for IC2 and ISA. My subject will be in the OT and IICS security. First of all, OT is a little bit different from the IT. OT, it's operational technology. It's all what is used to control physical processes as a mix of hardware and software systems. It's used to monitor, control, and supervise physical processes. As an example, you can look at the picture in below. It's related to air conditioning systems, elevator systems. It can be dooring systems. It can be ticketing, parking systems, and all of that is named. It's component named sensors and actuators. There is some programmable logical controllers. There is human-machine interface (HMI) and supervisory control and data acquisition. What is IACS? It's more specific to industrial automation and control system field. OT is used for, the first thing, what it's introduced the OT, the operation technology, into differentiated from the IT. It's when is monitoring and controlling operations about the industry. It's industry automation, with industry in general. Where we find OT and what it's related to us as this in this world. It can be in the water, sewage, it can be in electricity, it can be in transportation and critical manufacturing, power plant, it can be chemical plant, it can be nuclear plant, industrial automation, where there is some industry that fabrics automotive or some machinery or something else. Oil and gas, it can be in the production or in the development of that kind. Building management of what we can see related to IoT and IIoT as well. So OT is all around us. As perspective and a beginning of the OT and automation pyramid, we can see that to relate between OT and IT networks and environment, there is this pyramid. In the OT, let's begin from the level 1, which is the field level, the larger level, which contain that robots or that sensors and actuators in the field of that industry. For example, let's see some valve of the machine, some sensors about the humidity, about the actual level, which there is some movement on that machine or the development or something. Control level are the machines or the programmable logical computer that which are programmed to interact with that machines, with that robots at a certain moment. If that sensor cap that if that sensor, few minutes, I have something. Here again, I told that the programmable logical controller are processing the data from the technician or the operator that will be changing and modifying the robot state at a certain time. As an example, in the pipeline in the chemical or nuclear plant, where there is a certain level on that pipeline, for example, some pressure, that said that if there is a pressure higher than 80% of that pipe, you will block the valve, for example. So it's only a logical controller that's programmable by the technicians or the OT engineers. On the top level of that, the supervisory level, which there are interaction with the humans, there's the HMI, the human-machine interface, that you can see the status of that PLCs and the status of the field-level machines. In the EWS, which are the engineer workstation, that here we can do the sort of programming or more checking about the levels of that system. On top of that, we'll connect to the IT network, to the IT environment, which are the planning level and management level, comprising the ERP services and the MES services. Same challenges of IT professionals. I can say that from difference between the IT and OT are very large, but we can know that there have the same career path. Like Amine said previously, there is a sort of careers. So in offensive security or defensive security or GRC management, we will find the same kind of profile in both of the systems. Just the difference is that it's more specific to the industry, and there is that physical hardwares or physical property. You have to know that in the OT have that specified diversity as well. As you know, the vendors in IT, for example, Dell, for example, Macintosh, for example, or the vendors, we can see that in OT there is a lot too. And we have to imagine that each industry vendor has its own OS, operating system, and its own protocol used. For example, as ABB, Schneider, IBM, Yokogawa, Emerson have their own processes and protocols. In front of that standard development organization, like you will see with the IT phase, the standard used to regulate the processes in the IT field. There is same for OT, which are from the international organization or specified for one country. How are IT and OT now different? Like said, my friend previously in the CE at Riyadh, the confidentiality, integrity, availability, which is specific for IT and which is related to security of the data in the environment. In the OT, the priority is about availability, integrity, and confidentiality. Availability first, because the industry can't stop at any time. So for doing a sort of monitoring or giving some updates onto the system, you can do that like the IT system. And it's related to the safety of the person, the safety of the lives. In one of the different characteristics that are identified between IT and OT easily, you have the availability requirements, which are medium in the IT side and very high in that OT. Real-time requirements, the IT can be delayed and accepted for minutes, for maybe hours sometime, but in the OT it's really critical to don't stop at any time that work or that task. The common component lifetime, we talk about IT, PCs, servers, and all, we can tell about 3-5 years lifetime. In front of that, in OT, it can be, or it is from 20 years and more. If you go now in the industry nowadays, you will see a PLC or machinery that it's implemented 20 or 15 years old at that time and doesn't change or be updated, for example. Application patch regularly scheduled in IT and very slow and infrequent in the OT environment. Security testing, it's mandatory and scheduled in the IT field, and the OT field, it's something new. It's something new. The security audits are really new in the field because they prioritize the production and the health of that product. Security awareness, like we say nowadays, now in the IT, it can be a mature thing. They are working a lot on it, and the OT just here, the last years, they begin to be something that is important. Sorry. In the OT field, there is operations profile that can be categorized. There is 3 profile: asset owner, which is responsible on the OT environment, operate on that equipment under the control. The product supplier, which are the manufacturer and developer that support the OT and hardware software problems, like the vendors we saw before, and the service provider, which help to integrate, maintain, and concept the networks, the manufacturing state to the asset owner. It will analyze, install, and configure and test the product to helping the asset owner. because the asset owner is not responsible. He will not know all the product, all the protocols used in that industry. Career in OT, like we saw the three operational profile. There is three main career options. From manufacturing, which is the asset owner category, can go from the OT system analyst, who will analyze the system and their security state, and then the OT cybersecurity maintenance specialist will be specified in the cybersecurity maintenance of that equipment, and then go to the top, the OT cybersecurity engineer, which can have a top level of it, and then come to the head of OT cybersecurity operations, which operate the cybersecurity in the OT part of that network or that systems. And top of it, the relation with the IT will be the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, will coordinate all the cybersecurity processes inside the company. In the research and development, product, that the relation with the product suppliers, there are OT researchers which do and develop the solutions of that product, and then the OT architect experts which have more experience and related to that product and their security, then the head of OT research, then the OT technology. In the advising and consulting, which are the product suppliers most of the time, that can be OT analyst, OT consultant, which more experienced in the consulting and knowing specifically the design and implementation of that environment. The OT risk specialist, who can adopt risk about this equipment. IT OT senior consultant, that's the evolution. IT OT, which can do the relation between the IT field and the OT field, and the senior management on that category. As OT professional, there is a lot of OT certification, and one of them is the ISO 62443 standard, which are the most common and relative to the OT cybersecurity standard, which have three levels of certification, and then can come to the COSP and some SANS specific certification, and then the CISM and the CISP, which are more related to operations and as a top level in cybersecurity. How to go to OT security? Following the IT security zero to hero path. Here in the OT, it will be the same path at the beginning, and then you can add more programming language like C, Python, and then learn more computer and network security, and then control systems, so it's related to industry studies. Learn control and system security, more crafted in the security of that systems. Consolidate the knowledge and get some certification to have that level in that industry, and have the network get placed to enter the expertise and get launched in your career. The most question that I have been asked before is how to do the transition to that OT security. There's two backgrounds from OT, which are an engineer in OT, which want to focus and add that level or this layer of cybersecurity. You have to do an effort in the foundation of cybersecurity because you don't have that knowledge. So some cybersecurity principle, practice and technology in network security, security architecture, cryptography and risk management, and then get hands-on on OT security, network security, security architecture and risk management related to OT. From an IT security background, we have to focus on that environment that you are missing the knowledge. Operation, and to go in the operation security, more system architecture, network architecture, view and research communication protocols in the OT network like Modbus and DNP and so on, and gain hands-on to have that knowledge and practical level. Few platform to practice. There is the first of all is Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, which have some trainings there for free by level from 101 to 401. There is 4 level. There is the course to follow and some practical lab. Adding to that, there is some tools, Elite Wolf, ICSploit to use on the power plant, for example. And Fortified at the right, Graphics V2 is a simulation of an OT environment. And there is some other labs and trainings in training games, for example, Try Hack Me, and some GitHub link here. In certification, like we saw before, in the right there is the ISA AEC 62443 standard certification, which there is 3 levels, from the fundamental specialist certificate, which is the level 1, and then in the level 2 there is 3 specialties, which one is the risk assessment specialist, one is the design specialist, and one is the maintenance specialist. And in the level 3 is to accumulate the 4 certificates to be an expert. In the other certification, like in SANS, there is more practical about the industry in the blue teaming or in red teaming. There is some as incident response, for example, or just some certification like the COSP and COSP, which are OT security practitioner and the management. And in the AC Council certificate, there is the ICS SCADA certificate. There is other certifications or specific to vendors, like Fortinet has own, like Dragos and Nozomi. There is Clarity as well, which has some OT dedicated trainings about their product or their solutions, which can be implemented in the OT industry. Pass the hand to Taher Amine for the next slides part.
Thank you, Mehdi. Thank you for sharing this insightful presentation about OT security, even though you try to steal some IT geeks into your world. But we appreciate the level of depth that you have showed. Thank you.
Thank you, Taher.
Now I'm gonna share again my screen to continue with our webinar. So you have seen now OT security with our board member Mehdi Nacer KERKAR. Now to the next subject. Now an introduction to GRC. GRC, like I said in the beginning, it's about governance, risk, and compliance. So GRC, like I said, it stands for governance, risk, and compliance. But when you see risk, we mean in GRC risk management. So it's simply, to simplify the term, it's about making a program, making a roadmap, creating a strategy to enhance a business security posture. So it's about crafting strategies, policies, regulations, and so on. First, to govern the organization itself. Secondly, to do your risk assessment, risk management, and build your strategy. And finally, by compliance, we mean being compliant to industry standards. As an example, like my colleague Mehdi said, the ISA standard of 62443, you gotta be, as an example, compliant to this standard as an example. So this is part of the compliance. So governance is about the mechanism by which the organization is influenced and controlled. When it comes to risk, it's about the event that has the potential to cause loss or harm to that organization. Now, we do this GRC, let's say, life cycle through the methodology that we call the PDCA. It's simply about planning, doing, checking, and then acting upon our actions. So the plan part is about identifying the problem, identifying the needs, and so on. Doing is about testing the possible solutions. As an example, in terms of information security, it's about building, maintaining, and putting in controls, security controls. Now, When it comes to the check part, it's about verifying the effectiveness of the controls that we have put in place. And now finally, the act is about implementing the best solution based on the metrics and analysis and so on that we have studied alongside our, let's say, strategy. So it's about keeping the continuous improvement on. So the PDCA lifecycle, let's say it's some sort of a triad of working in the GRC. Like we have the CIA triad for information security, but in terms of GRC, yes, we do have the CIA triad and so on, but we do it through this methodology of the PDCA cycle. So what is governance? I mean, governance, okay, you probably heard about a governor in the United States, or this term being referred to a couple of things, but governance in terms of IT and information security refers to the overall management structure and processes within an organization. So it's about defining the roles, the responsibilities, and so on of our staff inside an organization. So it simply focuses on establishing an oversight mechanisms and accountability structures to maintain our strategic goals and business objectives. So governance frameworks often include elements, as an example, the corporate governance, IT governance, and so on, to ensure that our resources are managed responsibly and, more importantly, ethically. Now, in terms of risk management, it simply means involving the identifying, assessing, and mitigating of risks that could impact the achievements of our, let's say, organization's objectives. So risks can, like you all know, it can rise from various sources, whether it's strategic risk, operational, financial, and so on. It probably the risk is a human based, probably it's a technology, probably it's a vulnerability, and so on. So in the GRC framework, risk management simply aims to proactively identify and evaluate the potential threats and vulnerabilities to our organizational, let's say, goals, whether it's assets, data, systems, and so on. So the risk management processes typically involve risk assessment, risk treatment, and risk monitoring to ensure that risks are effectively controlled, monitored, and managed within, of course, an acceptable level, because like we say in information security, risk zero does not exist. So it's about minimizing the risk. Now, in terms of compliance, what is compliance? It simply refers to the adherence to laws, regulations, standards, and internal policies that are relevant to the organization, to the country, or to the nation as a whole. So in the GRC context, compliance activities focus on ensuring that our organization complies with the applicable legal and regulatory requirements, while we can also fortify this by following some standards and frameworks and so on. So in compliance, or the compliance efforts are typically involve conducting the regular audits, the risk assessments, and the review and the design of our strategies, policies, procedures, and controls, and so on. So compliance with the GRC standards helps the organizations to mitigate their legal and regulatory risks and enhance, of course, their trust and confidence within their industry, within the public, or within their countries. Now, GRC is based on, let's say, standards, laws, and regulations. Of course, there could be some sort of acts and so on, but generally we have these three main parts inside the GRC world. So standards are established guidelines, or they could be frameworks developed by recognized authorities or international organizations, or probably national organizations, to define the best practices and the requirements that we have to put inside a specific area, industry, or country, as an example. Now, in terms of laws, they are obviously, from its name, it's about the legal statutes enacted by legislative bodies such as the government or the regulatory agencies that mandate specific behaviors or actions and may impose penalties for the non-compliance. Now, in terms of regulations, it's something similar to law. So it's about the rules or the requirements that are issued by government agencies or regulatory bodies as well to implement and enforce the laws within specific industries, sectors, countries, and so on. Now, government agencies in, like in different nations, take different approaches to security laws, regulations, standards, and so on. So in terms of laws of the different nations, they might be structured to result in very dissimilar styles of regulation. Well, no country has the perfect solution to the challenge of how to best or of how best to regulate cybersecurity. So this is an area where, like we said in the beginning, where learning and keeping the continuous improvement on could be instructive to our success. Now, in terms of the word standards, it simply it could have multiple meanings in the cybersecurity domain. Besides best practices or standards, we have the most famous, which is the 27000 series. There are also technical standards like the EEEE 802.11, which defines the wireless protocols that we use in wireless networks and so on. There is also a third meaning for standards, which refers to the rules that an organization might develop and enforce internally. As an example, how often an employee needs to change their password. So all meanings could be correct depending on the context, but the intended meaning is usually apparent from the context of Harris and Miami in 2016. So these standards, laws, and regulations all work inside the GRC specialty, the governance, risk, and compliance. Now, in summary, standards are or could be voluntary guidelines or frameworks. Laws are legal statutes that are enacted by legislative bodies, and the regulations are the rules issued by the regulatory agencies to implement and enforce specific laws. Now, while organizations may voluntarily adopt standards to improve their practices, compliance with laws and regulations is mandatory, and it carries legal implications for non-compliance. It could impact the fines, the legal implications, and so on. So standards are a nice addition to have. Let's say you should have a standard, but in laws and regulations, it's a must. It is not a should. So GRC programs aim to ensure that organizations obviously to effectively navigate and comply with the relevant standards, laws, and regulations. Now, in terms of goals and importance, I know, so some of you, I know some people, like most of people, when they start in cybersecurity, they forget that GRC exists. Like they forget the goals, they forget the importance. They only focus on the hard skills of hacking and securing, doing SOC analysis, and so on. That's not wrong, but that's not enough, because goals and importance of GRC, it's about laws and regulations that they provide incentives for utilities to adopt effective cybersecurity measures. So this motivation may include incentives for strengthening the cybersecurity of a country, of a company, or of the whole world. Now, a well-structured regulation will balance, obviously, the cybersecurity benefits of compliance against the cost to the utility. Now, however, creating a well-structured regulation can be tricky, and it is tricky, but the consequence of getting it wrong can be dire. Now, a poorly structured regulation could force utilities to expend their resources on compliance with little actual cybersecurity benefits. So that's why in GRC, we do a mix between standards, laws, and regulations. So we have to ensure, of course, that we are following the regulations in place and the laws, and by also doing the best practices and standards to enhance our security posture. So this could obviously result, as an example, in terms of OT security, it might result in an electric grid that is even less secure than if no regulation has been implemented, as an example. So in other words, the organization might have achieved more effective cybersecurity if it had invested in its resources as it saw fit. But obviously, internationally recognized standards are valuable resources because the best practices that they embody go through an extensive vetting process. I mean, can you imagine doing or implementing an ISO standard, which is the International Standardization Organization? I mean, there are hundreds of experts that are collaborating all together for the different industries in order to finalize such standards. So obviously, these standards would be helpful. Of course, guys, there is a huge difference between being really resilient and secure and being compliant to a specific standard. I mean, I'm not against being compliant. Of course, it is super helpful. It's so good. It presents too many opportunities for individuals, for businesses, and so on. But there is a difference between being compliant and being really and practically secure. So to summarize it, these standards, laws, and regulations, they simply provide a common language for the security professionals, the top management, and the general public. Now, in terms of compliance, laws and regulations, like we said, they are implemented by the governments to define the required behaviors from the individuals, the companies, organizations, and so on. So standards may be implemented by many types of organizations, so including international standards bodies or other specific bodies, and they obviously have to define the recommended behaviors. Now, this compliance effort within the utility strives to interpret and enact those behaviors, so as well as they document the utility's adherence to the regulations and standards. Now, laws, regulations, and standards, they give you the required steps or the recommended behaviors into being compliant, into achieving compliance. So this is what GRC is about. It's about following certain standards and rules, at the same time managing the risk and being able to oversight the governance of an organization. Now, GRC, like we said, is about governance, risk, and compliance. And these three key aspects are based on the standards, regulations, and laws. Now, these standards, regulations, and laws are based on the policy, process, and procedure. So, policies, procedures, and processes are distinct but interconnected components that help organizations establish and also maintain their effective governance structures. Now, in order to manage risks or ensure compliance with relevant laws, standards, and so on, you gotta have the different policies required, different processes and procedures. So in terms of going from the top to down, we have policy. It is the most important. Then it will define the processes, and these processes will have different procedures. Now we have this triple P, which is policy, process, and procedure. To simplify the term for you guys, policy is a rule or a guideline that helps an organization into governing a specific process. Now the process is a series of high-level activities or tasks that produce a specific outcome. Now, in order to produce this specific outcome, we have the procedure of how to produce that outcome. So a procedure is a sequence of steps or work instructions to complete an activity within a process. As an example, the policy in finance, as an example, all invoices above $10K require CEO approval. Now, in terms of the process following this policy, we have the accounts payable. So the high-level activities might include sending an invoice, receiving invoice, approve the invoice, and so on. Now, how to do that, or in practical terms, we have the procedure. So entering the invoice as an example, you can use the open sub system, the search purchase order, entering the invoice, and so on. So this policy, process, and procedure. To provide more context, a policy is a high-level statement or directive that outlines the organization's objectives, principles, or rules governing a particular area of activity. As an example, we have the information security policy, which should be implemented at the organization level. So policies set the overall direction and framework for decision-making and behavior within an organization. Now, a procedure is the detailed set of steps or instructions that outline how a specific task or an activity should be performed to achieve a desired outcome. Now, these procedures provide a systematic approach for carrying out tasks. A process, in the other hand, is a series of interrelated activities or tasks that work together to achieve a specific objective or deliver a particular outcome. As an example, processes represent the end-to-end flow of activities within an organization. In this little diagram here, you can see we have the general policy, a couple of processes, and different set of procedures. As an example, so to better understand this thing, I know GRC is something like more theoretical than practical, but understanding this will give you a huge benefit in both red teaming, blue teaming, and GRC itself. So let me give you these examples. Maybe they will help you clarify more. So as an example, in terms of policy, like I said, we have the information security policy. So it's about outlining the organization's commitment to protecting sensitive information and defining responsibilities and so on for their information security management. In terms of a process, we have the risk management process. So it's about outlining the systematic approach for identifying, assessing, mitigating, monitoring, controlling, and so on the risks across our organization. Now, in terms of procedure, one of the most famous is the incident response procedure. It's about detailing the steps to be followed in the event of a security incident, including its different life cycle components: reporting, containment, assessment, remediation, and more. So in summary, or to summarize, policies provide the high-level guidance and principles. Procedures offer detailed instructions for performing specific tasks, and the processes define the overall flow of activities to achieve organizational objectives. You can see this little picture here of governance, risk, and compliance. As an example, in terms of statutory or regulatory, we have laws, statutes, and regulations. In terms of standards, we will dive into them. There is the ISO, NIST, and more. In terms of policies, we have organizational policy, IT policy, information security policy, and so on. In terms of, as an example, contracts, we have customer contracts, B2B agreements. In terms of processes and procedures, they are very specific, like to the NIST CSF, the ISO, the organizational, and so on. In terms of controls, or information security controls, you can refer to our last webinar where we introduced how to build cybersecurity controls. You will see that there are different types of controls, like administrative controls, technical controls, physical, and more. And now, in terms of compliance, well, it is an ongoing process. So it generally starts with categorizing systems, and then selecting the controls, implementing the controls, assessing controls, and then authorizing the systems, and keeping the continuous monitoring of systems. So this whole thing is about the PDCA: plan, do, check, and then act. Now, in terms of most common standards and regulations that we strongly use in terms of cybersecurity, information security, and especially GRC. Well, since most of us here, or all of us here, are already Algerians, we have the RNSI, or in French, le Référentiel National de la Sécurité de l'Information. It's one of the standards that we have here in Algeria as a national standard that we can follow in order to implement secure information systems. We also have, in terms of privacy and data protection, we have the ANPDP, or the 1807 law that was presented just recently. It stands for Autorité Nationale de Protection des Données à Caractère Personnel. Donc, these standards might help us in Algeria to achieve a certain level of protection and at the same time data protection. But in terms of really strong controls, standards, and regulations, we have the international stuff. So we have the ISO, or the ISO, which is the International Standardization Organization, and one of the most famous standards in terms of information security is the 27001. It's about creating an ISMS, an Information Security Management Systems. It's followed, of course, by a couple of other standards like 272, 275, 32, 35, others, 23,000 for the BCMS, and so on. We have the PCI DSS. It's about it stands for the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. It's about bankings and financial services that store, handle, and so on the credit card information of people. This is a regulatory thing. The ISO is a standard. Now, in terms of, like you see here, the NIST CSF, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which is about, well, first of all, NIST is the National Institute for Standards and Technologies. It's a US institute. They developed a couple of standards in cybersecurity, some of them specializing in different things. We call them NIST SPs, the special publications. And there are the standards like this one, the CSF. Well, for your information, NIST CSF, when started with the first edition. It was about 5 pillars. And now they didn't officially publish the second edition, but it's already out as a draft, and it has 6 pillars. It's about identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, and govern. Now, in terms of data protection at a worldwide level, we have the GDPR. It's the European standard, or the European regulation for data protection. It stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. We also have FISMA as an example for the United States. It's the Federal Information Security Management Act. So it's also some sort of regulation or some sort of law, to be specific. We have the CES controls. we can follow it as a standard, the Center for Internet Security Controls for protecting critical, or for implementing the critical controls in order to protect critical information systems. We have HIPAA for the US as well, for hospitals and so on. It stands for the Health Insurance and Portability Accountability Act. We have SOX, the Sarbanes-Oxley Compliance. We have COBIT and more. We as OWASP Algiers chapter, since we are part of the OWASP International Foundation, which stands for the Open Worldwide Application Security Project, we also have our own standards in terms of cybersecurity, especially application security. Like most of you know, we have the OWASP Top 10 for web applications, Top 10 for AI, LLM, Top 10 for APIs, for mobile, for, different standards, different tools that are already open and could be used from our foundation. Now, in terms of intro to blue teams and defensive security, or SOC, unfortunately, this presentation was programmed to be presented by my vice president, Abdurraouf Ben Ghaida, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it today, so I'm gonna take the lead on this subject as well. Now, in this little part of blue teams and cyber defense, we will see what is a blue team. We will talk about security engineering. We'll see security operations center, the manager, the analyst, the most famous blue team specialties, and then we will finalize by blue team training platforms. So a blue team, it is simply a group responsible for defending an enterprise use of information systems, obviously by maintaining its security posture against a group of attackers or cyber criminals, APTs, and so on. In most cases, in terms of technicalities or operational security, we have three types. We have red teams, blue teams, and the purple teams. Now, in terms of red teaming, I'm going to leave this one for my colleague Hichem to present it. Now, in terms of blue team, like blue team are the defenders, red teams are the attackers, and in the middle we have a purple teaming. It's not a team, but it's rather a concept into testing the detection and response capabilities as an example. So security engineer is one of the most famous roles in cybersecurity and also in blue teaming. So security engineers in general, they are responsible for safeguarding the organization's information technology infrastructure and data from vulnerability, cyber attacks, and more. So these engineers play an important role in the design of information security systems, their implementation, and their maintenance, while ensuring the CI and triad that we have seen in the beginning. Now, this word of SOC, we have seen SOCs in multiple places. We even have dedicated SOCs for OT side. We also have SOC for IT, and there are more other specialized centers and teams for different purposes inside the blue team and cyber defense world. But the most famous is the SOC, Security Operations Center. It's simply the command center facility in which a team of IT security professionals with expertise in different aspects of security, they monitor, analyze, and protect their organization or their country from the different cyber attacks or cyber attack attempts and more. Now, in terms of the roles inside of a SOC, firstly, we have the SOC manager, the lead who will lead our SOC team. So SOC managers, they lead the security operations team and reports generally either to the CISO or the VP of security or to their management or top management. This SOC manager, they supervise the team, they provide the technical guidance and manage activities in, let's say, these most following ways. So oversees hiring, training, and evaluating of the SOC staff. They create the processes and procedures that are related to their SOC teams and infrastructure. They assess the incident response, develops and implements crisis communication plans, create compliance reports, support the audits and the auditors, measures the SOC performance based on its KPIs, KRIs, and so on, and reports on security operations to their executive management, whether it's CISO or so on, depending on the organization hierarchy, infrastructure, or overview. So in terms of the SOC staff, we have the SOC analyst as well. A SOC analyst is a person who works on a team to monitor, analyze, and respond to the security issues that raises inside our security operations center. So the main goal of an analyst is to prevent attacks on a network or on an infrastructure as a whole. So they simply monitor the network for signs of an attack. So once an attack has been detected, they investigate it with their other team members and other collaborators. So the SOC analyst is, in most cases, it's 3 levels. We have L1, L2, and L3. The level 1 analyst within a SOC are typically the entry-level staff responsible for handling the initial triage and response to security alerts and incidents. Their main duties, it's about monitoring, alert triage, initial investigation, and the escalation of the incidents. The SOC Level 2 analysts or L2 analysts are responsible for conducting in-depth analysis and investigation of the different security incidents that has been escalated from the L1 analyst. So this involves incident analysis, investigation, advanced threat hunting, incident response, tool and process improvement, and of course training and mentorship for their fellow L1 analysts. The SOC L3 level are, let's say, the top professionals or the technical top professionals. They are the ones responsible for leading and coordinating the response to the most complex and critical security incidents. So this include really advanced incident response and threat hunting, threat intelligence analysis or CTI, the design and architecture of their SOC, the forensics, research, innovation, and more. Now, in terms of specialties inside the blue teaming and cyber defense world, the most famous specialties, I mean, besides being an engineer or a SOC analyst, there are specialties. We have the DFIR, which stands for Digital Forensics and Incident Response. So DFIR is a field within cybersecurity that focuses on identification of incidents, the investigation, and the remediation of cyber attacks. DFIR or digital forensics, like you have seen from the word, it's about 2 main components, or let's say 2 main fields. Digital forensics, or a subset of forensic science that examines system data, user activity, and other pieces of digital evidence to determine if an attack is in progress or if an attack has already occurred. Now, the incident response, from the word is obvious, it's the overarching process that an organization will follow in order to prepare for, detect, contain, and recover from a data breach or a cyber incident, cyber attack, and so on. Now, in terms of certifications, like the most famous certifications in terms of DFIR or Digital Forensics and Incident Response, we have the CHFI. It is the Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator from EC Council. We have the GCFA, the Certified Forensic Analyst from GIAC. We have the Certified Incident Handler. It exists in GIAC and also in EC Council, and there is the INE E-Learn Security, the ECIR, the Incident Responder or Certified Incident Responder. There is also ECDFP, the Certified Digital Forensics Professional, and more, of course. Now, in terms of other specialties, there is threat hunting. So threat hunting is the practice of proactively searching for cyber threats that are lurking and detected in a network. In most cases, it's about searching for APTs as an example, the advanced persistent threats. So cyber threat hunting digs deep to find malicious actors in your environment that have slipped past your initial endpoint security defenses, or they have, or these actors could probably already slipped past your SOC analyst. So the threat hunter has to be sure to catch them before they make more impact inside your infrastructure. So in terms of threat hunting certifications, there is the practical threat hunting training and certification from Mandiant as an example. It's a leading firm of incident response, threat hunting, and so on. There is also this certification dedicated for threat hunting from INE. It's the ECTHP, the Certified Threat Hunting Professional, and there are more in GIAC and EC Council. I'm not sure if they have threat hunting certification, but the GIAC or the Sense Institute, I'm sure that they have dedicated training for threat hunting specialties. Another a special field. It's called malware analysis and reverse engineering. Well, let's be clear, or let's clarify something first. Malware analysis and reverse engineering, these are two fields or two skills that are also needed by the DeFire people. Malware analysis is also required by incident responders and digital forensic specialists, and also reverse engineering, because you gotta reverse engineer a malware in order to analyze the malware. So malware analysis is the study of the unique features, objectives, sources, and potential effects of harmful software, code, or more, such as spyware, viruses, ransomware, and more. So it analyzes the malware code to understand how it varies from other kinds, in order to conduct our digital forensics, in order to understand how they got foothold on our network, and discover more intriguing information. Now, in terms of malware analysis and reverse engineering, yes, as well, like the others, there are multiple trainings and certifications dedicated to these two, but we have these most famous certifications. We have the malware analysis professional from INE as well, and there is the GREM. It's a reverse engineering malware certification from the Gyaxens Institute. Now, in terms of CTI, or the cyber threat intelligence, it's about evidence-based knowledge, including context, mechanisms, indicators, implications, and actionable advice about an existing or emerging menace or hazard to assets that can be used to inform decisions regarding the subjects. It's also about proactively protecting our information systems. Of course, there are dedicated certifications as well in terms of threat intelligence, and don't leave yet our webinar, because I will give you a little surprise by the end. One of them is related to threat intelligence. So there is the CTEA, it's the Threat Intelligence Analyst from EC Council, or the GCTI from GIAC. Now, in terms of practicing and learning and enhancing skills, of course, there are dedicated platforms for blue teams like the Cyber Defenders and Let's Defend. And there is obviously a Try Hack Me and Hack the Box, but these two are not really dedicated to blue teamers in general. Like, they are more oriented to red teams, but they do have some challenges in terms of reverse engineering, malware analysis, and so on. So I would advise you to start with Let's Defend, and especially Cyber Defenders. It's one of the raising platforms in terms of SOC, blue teaming, and cyber defense in general. Now, an introduction to red teaming, offensive security, VAPT, with my colleague Hichem BELGUENDOUZ.
Thank you, Amine.
Thank you, Hichem.
I'll just show my screen.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's clearer? No?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. So, good morning, everybody. I hope that everyone is doing well. I'm BELGUENDOUZ Hichem, cybersecurity enthusiast and network security professional. In this part of the presentation, we're going to highlight some points for the people who are interested in offensive security pathway, what are the common specialties, and a roadmap to start. So the agenda of the day, we will start with introduction to what is a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, red teaming, and bug bounty. After that, we are going to do talking about some differences between vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, about also vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, and bug bounty. Also, we're going to highlight some points about red teaming and penetration testing. After that, we are going to talk about learning approaches and certification in this field. Finally, we are going to talk about the platform and practices and other resources needed for this field. So, red teams play a crucial role in fortifying defenses and testing the resilience of systems against potential threats. The red team have evolved into fundamental components of cybersecurity practices in general. First of all, the concept of red team traces back to military exercises where they were initially employed to simulate opposing forces. During a war game, one team assumed the role of the adversary, which is the red team, to challenge the strategies and preparedness of friendly forces, which are the blue team that Amine was talking about. The adversarial simulation helps uncover weaknesses, enhance strategic thinking, and ultimately improve readiness. So the primary purpose of the red team in cybersecurity is to proactively identify and mitigate potential security risks before they can be exploited by the adversaries. Red teams in cybersecurity possess several specialties and capabilities that distinguish them from other security functions. These specialties enable red team to effectively simulate real-world adversaries and identify vulnerability in an organization defenses. So we will start with what is a vulnerability assessor. Okay, vulnerability assessors are cybersecurity professionals responsible for identifying, assessing, and prioritizing vulnerability in IT systems, network, and applications. Vulnerability assessors also work with the IT team and cybersecurity professionals to help maintain data safety. They use a variety of tools, techniques, and methodologies to systematically scan, analyze, and evaluate the security posture of an organization assets and infrastructure such as network devices like routers, switches, firewalls, servers, applications, and endpoints also. While vulnerability assessors analyze or identify vulnerability, their primary goal is not to exploit them, but rather to assess the risk they pose to the organization. Instead of exploitation, vulnerability assessors provide recommendation and guidance on how to remediate or mitigate identified vulnerabilities. We're going to talk also about another specialties in the offensive security, which is bug bounty. So first of all, this specialties or the bug bounty hunting. First of all, the challenge that face the big enterprise in the world, especially the big ones, is that their business is growing up, and it's going to be difficult to hire a large number of cybersecurity professionals to cover all this infrastructure due to the huge number of attacks against it. Some companies try to attract hackers all over the world to do the hacking ethically and not to find vulnerabilities and sell it on the darknet. Okay, these companies created programs telling the hackers, if anyone finds a vulnerability in our application, we will pay him money based on the criticality of that flows founded. And by that, they attract the hackers or the attackers in general inside all the world to use their skill set ethically. On the other side, the hackers also benefit financially for their efforts. Another point to mention here is the vulnerability responsible disclosure program is the proactive approach or its structured framework established by organization to facilitate the reporting and remediation of security vulnerabilities identified by external researchers or individuals. Now talking about what is a penetration testing. All of you maybe, of course, is the most known job in the world in cybersecurity, I think so. The penetration testing, often referred as pen testing, is proactive cybersecurity assessment technique used to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in an organization's system, network, and application. Unlike the vulnerability scanning that we talked about, which focus on identifying weaknesses, penetration testing goes a step further by simulating a real-world attacks to assess the effectiveness of security control and defenses. Okay, the importance of the penetration testing is important for several reasons. From them, it helps the organization identify and prioritize security vulnerabilities before the adversary can be exploited or discover them, thereby reducing the risk of cyber attacks and data breaches. In addition to that, penetration testing provides valuable insight into the effectiveness of existing security measures and help organizations enhance their overall security posture. By uncovering vulnerabilities that may be or may not be apparent through automated scans like vulnerability assessment do or routine assessment, penetration testing enable the organization to address security gaps and implement target remediation measures. And of course, it is regulatory compliant, or it's strongly recommended regular penetration testing as a part of cybersecurity program in each organization. For example, we have some framework that Amine talked about, like PCI DSS, HIPAA, or GDPR, may require or encourage penetration testing at least once a year as mean of ensuring data security and regulatory compliance. So to resume, that penetration testing help us to identify and prioritize security risk and verify existing security program are working and discover your security strength in the company. Okay. In this slide, we talk about what is penetration testing, what is vulnerability assessment, and so on. But what should be tested? Okay, we said that penetration testing or the offensive security team is responsible for identifying weaknesses in security controls and defenses. Okay, but what should be tested? Because everything is connected with each other. A lot of people, if you ask them about what should be tested, they will say mobile application, web application, network devices, for example. But there is an ecosystem relies on each other. Every piece of it is important for other. We have, as you can see here, everything is connected to each other. Mobile application, web application, we have APIs, IoT, blockchain, system solution, like backup solution, for example, Active Directory, SCCM, and so on. We have logic and processes, we have network appliances, OT devices that Mehdi talked about, we have cloud, user behavior, and so on. In our interconnected world, our cybersecurity posture is only as strong as the weakest link. We often focus on testing individual components, but we must recognize that these are just pieces of large puzzle. Our cybersecurity ecosystem composes a multitude of technologies, processes, people, all indirectly connected and interdependent. Consider a scenario where a multi-cloudly secure our mobile application, for example, against vulnerabilities, only to overlook weaknesses in our APIs or cloud infrastructure, or the instance where we invest heavily in network security appliances and neglect to address vulnerabilities in our IoT devices or firmware, for example. In both cases, a single oversight could leave our entire ecosystem vulnerable to exploitation. Testing every component of our cybersecurity ecosystem a strategic imperative by conducting comprehensive assessment across all of these pieces. We gain a holistic understanding of our security posture, of course. So in this table, I wanted to explain the differences between what is vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, okay? When you see VAPT, it is vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, which is the penetration testing. The scope of penetration testing is defocus, counter, or in the opposite of vulnerability assessment is wide. The goal of penetration testing is exploit, discover vulnerabilities to reach the highest privileges. But in vulnerability assessment, find as many possible, find all the vulnerabilities as possible. The duration of vulnerability assessment quick to complete and maybe can done automated. In the penetration testing, it's time consuming and need a manual work. The false positive in VA are produced, especially when we use automated tools. In the other hand, penetration testing are using manual ways or techniques, so it can be filtered out. The impact of VA will not impact the business processes, okay? But in the other hand, the PT or VAPT might disrupt business processes, so we must be careful in this phase. The test methods or the common tests known in the VA are authenticated and unauthenticated. The penetration tests, the most common test method are the black, white, and the gray, and other test method known as crystal. The frequency of VA, it is not related to time. Maybe 3 times, 4 times, maybe quarter, maybe it depends on the organization posture. While in the PT or VAPT is done by or on the critical assets. In the other hand, if we talk about the cost effective, okay? In the other hand, also the VAPT is cost effective, or it's very expensive because it's need a skills person to do so. While penetration testing at the end, it's end with report, a full detail of vulnerability exploitation report, and how we did exploitation, how we did post exploitation, and so on. And the most important, how we mitigate them. Where we with the vulnerability assessments, we done with a partial detail on the files founded. This table, I wanted to explain the differences between the VAPT and the bug bounty hunting. Each one has an approach, each one has a methodology, each one has different metrics. For example, the approach of penetration testing, it's a formal, it's contract assessments, okay? The bug bounty hunting, it's informal, okay? You can go to the platform and sign in, and anyone in the world can sign and do bug bounty hunting to the company if they has a program publicly. The scope of PT or VAPT typically predefined scope. Okay, the bug bounty hunting broader scope, often covering entire system. Engagement duration, usually in VAPT, usually conducted over a fixed time frame, where the bug bounty hunting ongoing with no set end date. Reporting, as we said in VAPT, detailed report provided at the end of the testing. In the bug bounty, continuous reporting as we discover vulnerabilities or new vulnerabilities. The testing environments in the VAPT are controlled and simulated, where the bug bounty hunting, it's a real world environment and a real production. Expertise requires in the VAPT, as we talked, they need very talented and professional penetration testers. In the other hand, bug bounty open to anyone, including non-professional. May anyone get into bug bounty, knowing some files and start bug bounty. This is it. The cost of VAPT, as we talk, is fixed cost and expensive on the scope and the duration, where the bug bounty hunting bounty payouts based on the severity and vulnerabilities. The confidentiality for the penetration testing often before or in the contract before doing the assessment, there is NDA, non-disclosure agreement must be signed. In the other hand, bug bounty hunting are publicly accessible platforms. The ownership of findings, when we find the vulnerabilities in penetration testing, it's owned by the contracting organization. Okay. In the other hand, bug bounty hunting owned by the funder. Okay, now we are going to talk about another subcategory in the red team, which called the red teaming and adversary emulation. The red teaming and adversary emulation is a part of red team. As we said, the red team and penetration testing are in some track, but with huge in the same pathway or in the same track, but with a huge difference in the mindset and the philosophy. The red team consists of security professionals as other who act as real adversaries to overcome security controls. Their role is doing proactive assessment on people, process, and technologies. Red team is a full scope multi-layer attack. Okay, we explain what is penetration testing and in phases what is the most common use of it. But in the red team is another mindset, is another methodology, is another skill set also. So to understand why we need another perspective from the security testing, why we need red team, is because of the beliefs of managerial decision. Because of some CISOs believe that if we have some security solutions, so we are secure. For example, they follow all the best practice, or some CISOs, they are saying that we are following the best practice of cybersecurity. We have all security solution like next generation firewall, antivirus, EDRs, IPS, WAFs, and so on. So we are secure. We applied all patches. We have maybe DLP. We have multi-factor authentication. We have a segmented network. So we are secure. And this is not the case. Some people think that the vulnerabilities and cyber attacks are about technologies and policies, and that is not the case. This is why we use penetration testing, but this huge number of technologies that we need, why we need another mindset to go without the penetration testing, okay? So there is many challenges for the organizations that are facing right now. For example, how much is the time takes between the initial compromise and the detection from the attacker that compromised the network, and the blue team can detect that there is a compromise in the network? How long it takes? The second challenge, how long it takes from the detection to containment? Okay, we detect that there is a compromise. So how to detect after the detection, how to containment, how long it takes? The third one, I think it's wrong in the slide. How long it takes from the containment to remediation? How does it take? You may heard a lot of big major companies that have been hacked. Some companies have been attacked from 1 to 3 months, and no one can detect the attackers. No one can detect that there is a compromise in their network. We are not talking about small companies, okay? Companies like Facebook, SolarWinds, the most known attack that happened in 2019. For example, companies also like FireEye, LinkedIn, Microsoft, and many others. Do you think that companies or these companies do not have MFA and next generation firewalls, other security solution? Of course they have. But with that, some of the best of them stay up to days to discover that there is a compromise in their network and their system. Okay, I detect that there is an attack or there is a compromise. How long to take to contain the attack? How long it takes to remediate after the containment? Okay, all this is very important measure to know how to respond to the attack and how to measure our cybersecurity maturity and not count on security solution. The problem of penetration tests is only cover the technology, But the red team is not cover only that. The red team cover the technology, the people, and the process. From the objective of the red team is assessing the blue team, okay, to measure their effectiveness. As you can see here that the penetration testing methodology is a linear approach, starting from the scope confirmation. After that, we do the reconnaissance on the target that we identify in the scope. After that, we are doing a vulnerability identification. After that, we exploit it. After that, we're doing the other steps, post-exploitation, lateral movement. At the end of the penetration testing, we deliver a report to to the client. In the other hand, red team exercises are very complex and non-linear steps or methodology, starting from contracting the red team, doing the reconnaissance on the target, confirming the scope that will be target, doing a vulnerability assessment, maybe go deeper, doing a persistence, returning to go deeper, returning to do exploitation, for example, doing a persistence, and so on. It's not linear methodology, okay? Not like the penetration testing. And finally, there is a report must be delivered also. So this is table also explaining the differences between the VIBT versus the red team. First of all, check the ability of an organization security system to defend against an attack. It's the goal of penetration testing and the red team. Check if the entire company and its network are prepared to withstand an APT. It is the goal of the red team, not the pen test. Train the company security teams and employees to defend against APT. It is the goal of the red team also. The main objective is to compromise as many systems and identify as many vulnerabilities as possible. Of course, this is the goal of the pen test, the red team. We need to know just one vulnerability to do our goals. Attack more than one target, access critical systems, take over admin account, exfiltrate document, and so on, doing everything possible to do the hack like an APT. And this is the goal of the red team. The company and security units know about the test and do not defend against it. In the pen test, when the penetration testers contract with the client, for example, of an organization, the blue team know that there is penetration testing and may not defend against it. Okay, in the red team, the blue team shouldn't know about it. So it's real attack, simulation. So they must behave as there is an attack, or real attackers are trying to attack our organization or our enterprise. Okay. In this phase, I didn't want to show up all this, but just focus with me to go step by step. So let's assume that you are here. We're talking about the beginners that they not have any expertise in networking, in systems, in cybersecurity. Okay, maybe it takes to from 8 to 12 months to start their journey by, as Amine told in the beginning of the webinar, the most needed certification and study materials. This is the CCNA, giving you the basics knowledge of the networking. It's most important for cybersecurity career to know what is networking, what is IPv4, what is IPv6, what is OZ model, what is routing protocol, because you are going in the future to access this network. You are going in the future to access these devices. So you need to know the basics, at least the basics, and CCNA will cover that. We have also the MCSA part, or the Linux part, the Linux administration, and the Microsoft administration, system administration in general, will cover by the MCSA and Linux Plus. And of course, the most known certification in the basics of cybersecurity is Security Plus. I strongly recommend this certification. And without or for not forget this point, programming. I didn't want to mention that, but as Amine said, it's very important step in all phases. At some point, you're gonna be a red teamer, you're gonna be an elite penetration tester. You need to create your own tools. You need to modify exploits. You need to modify other tools, or you need to create payload. You need programming. Any language, Python, Bash, PowerShell. At least you need to understand what is programming, and you need to get knowledge about it. Okay. After that, you get the knowledge, the basic knowledge about systems, networking, and cybersecurity. You need to get more knowledge about what is OWASP Top 10, the known vulnerabilities in web and mobile application also. At this phase, you can start bug bounty, as we said. Anyone can start it. 3 to 4 files of vulnerabilities. You can start with them normally. You can go deeper to understand more about at this point, we can say, I hope that everybody is hearing me.
Yeah, Hichem, sorry for the interruption. We have had a little disconnection, so if you could please repeat what you have just said.
Yes, of course. After the OWASP Top 10 and the web application and mobile application, you can start the bug bounty journey by at least knowing 4 to 5 vulnerabilities and starting your journey in bug bounty. As we said, everyone can start bug bounty. After that, you or anyone can go with the knowledge or knowing more about penetration testing and CE or ethical hacking by studying certification like EGBT and CEH. At this point, we can say, if you take this knowledge, we can say that you are a junior penetration testing. After that, you can go with more advanced certification like OSCP, ECCPT, PMPT, and CPTS are a good certification at the professional level, teaching you how to do a reconnaissance on different system, how to do exploitation, how to do post-exploitation, how to do lateral movement, and the most important thing also is how to do reporting. Okay, you are at the professional level and you want to be more specialized, to be a red teamer or elite penetration testing. This certification from outer security are the most common in the red team path, teaching you more about Active Directory, penetration testing, and security. We have the CRTO from 0 Point Security, teaching you the basics, principle, tools, and techniques. With the red team, the core concept of adversary simulation, command and control, engagement planning, and reporting. The same thing with the ECPTX, which is owned by INE now. We have also another certification, is good certification from Algiers Security, also Global Central Bank GCP. It's good, and which will teach you on real environment with huge infrastructure how to do the TTPs, or techniques and procedures. The most advanced certification from EC or offensive security are offensive security exploit developer and experience or expert. The most difficult in exploit development certification from offensive security. Also, for example, the OSCD will teach you the fundamental of reverse engineering, how to create custom exploits, how to develop the skill sets to bypass security mitigation, to write Windows shellcode, and so on. And the last certification for me, it's not just to clarify it, a point when we set certification, you don't get all this certification. Okay, for example, Spectre Ops Adversary Tactics certification, it's a very expensive certification for individuals, but the knowledge is more important. At this point, we can say that you are a red teamer. In the other hand, in the elite or penetration testing professional or elite penetration tester, after the OSCP, for example, you can go with the OSWE, which is Advanced Web Attacks and Exploitation, which will teach you how to perform a deep analysis of the compiled web application source code, which will teach you the basics, or which will give you the knowledge from a developer point of view. It will teach you also how to identify logical vulnerabilities that many enterprise scanners are enabled to detect. Also teach you combine logical vulnerabilities to create a proof of concept on a web application. So we are talking about high level, okay, high level penetration tester. This certification also, OSWE, will teach you the exploit vulnerability by chaining them into a complex attack. Okay, you may go with another certification, the OSEP, which specialize in evasion techniques and breaching defenses, which will teaching you covers evasion, or will teaching you how to evade defenses and breaching technique in greater depth, and preparing you for real life penetration testing field work. Okay, and we have another certification, the OSCE, and its certification earned by earning another certification. Of course, it is from offensive security. You must have 3 certifications to earn this one. You must be certified OSWE, OSEP, and OSED to gain this certification, and by that you're gonna be elite penetration testing at this point. For example, may someone ask me, I want to be more specialized in, for example, cloud penetration testing, blockchain penetration testing, mobile application penetration testing, or web pen testing. This is some certification from different vendor. For example, cloud security, Altered Security is doing great job for this with this certification. You can check them in the cloud penetration testing if you want to specialize more in the cloud. For example, the blockchain penetration testing, there is a blockchain council has a certified blockchain security professional CBSP certification. The SaaS also has a certification in this field. About the mobile app pen testing, Elon Security also present in this phase. Elon Security, just to notice that Elon Security is owned by the INE company right now. And SANS also have a certification for mobile application penetration testing. And the mobile penetration testing or web penetration testing also, we have multiple secure or multiple certification from eLearn. Of course, SANS also has multiple certification. And by that, we end this presentation by many platforms to practice. Try Hack Me, Hack Vulnerable, Vom Hub, Pulse Swigger, Pentester Lab are a very good platform to practice with. Starting, of course, by Try Hack Me, who is beginner friendly cybersecurity platform. I really recommend that this platform. If you want to specialize more in web application security, Pulsewigger is very good. And if you want more challenges, Hack the Box is the best platform for me. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy and get some new informations. Feel free to ask any question. And Amine, you have the mic, bro.
Thank you, Hichem. Thank you so much for this interesting adventure into the side of ethical hacking and penetration testing and so on. So now, 1 second, let me share my screen so we can dive into other cybersecurity certifications in general. I believe now you see my screen. Okay, now in terms of cybersecurity certifications, like my colleagues mentioned, like in Abdurraouf presentation, a couple of defensive-oriented certifications, like Mehdi mentioned, OT-oriented certifications, and also Hichem mentioned many certifications inside of the pen testing and the offense field in general. Now, in terms of cybersecurity and IT security as a whole, we have other certifications. I try to categorize them here as the most common and most well-known certifications. Well, the most renowned certification is obviously the ISC2 CISSP. It stands for the Certified Information System Security Professional. This is one of the, like Mehdi mentioned, and the others, one of the top certifications in the industry. Then we have the ISACA CISM, which stands for the Security Manager. We have the ISACA CISA, which is dedicated to systems auditing. We have the EC Council CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker. We have the OSCP, the S+. These certifications are the most high in demand in terms of jobs and businesses, and also one of the, let's say, the best certifications and most famous ones inside the field. Well, obviously, there are too many certifications in terms of cybersecurity, whether it's IT, OT, application, cloud, I don't know, like red teaming, blue teaming. There's just too many. I try to add some more certifications like the OSCE3 and OSEP, which Hichem talked about. There are some others like the PMPT, the ISC2CC, the CCSP, we have the CPEN, CCD, the GIAC certifications, the CRTP, CRTO, and too many certifications. Now, if you want, let's say, not truly a roadmap, but it could be used as a roadmap. I try to implement this link. I believe Hichem Berbesh, our colleague, will, the head of communications and community management, he will be sharing these slides with you later after we close this webinar. So you will have access to each slide that you have seen, and you will find this link where you can see, let's say, a comprehensive list of almost every certifications that exists in the IT and cybersecurity field. they are categorized from beginner certifications like these, and going to intermediate like these, and then going to the expert advanced certifications like the OSCE, the CISSP, and so on. And they are also categorized by the field of specialty, like network security. We have NSE from Fortinet, we have Cisco F5. In terms of IAM, we have security architecture and engineering, asset security, security assessment, and so on. Actually, this let's say categorization is based on the ISC2 CISSP CBK, the common body of knowledge. I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this roadmap has 8 specializations, and exactly the ISC2 CISSP covers 8 cybersecurity or information system security domains. So you can use this link. You will find the different certifications, and also it is some sort of a dynamic roadmap. I mean, if you put your mouse or hover over, as an example, over the I don't know, like the OSCE, if you click on it, you will find the full name of the certification and the approximate price of such certifications. I know this list is not super extensive. Like we said, cybersecurity is full of trainings, full of certifications, and there is no way that we can include everything. So thanks to Paul Jeremy, the creator of this one, it is super good. Now, in terms of networking in the industry, so how would you network? Guys, to clarify, we are talking about networking as humans and not computer networks. Okay, so networking in the cybersecurity industry is crucial for your career advancement, for landing a job, for working as a consultant, as a freelancer, to staying up to date, and to building professional relationships inside this exciting industry. So here are some of the types that I would like to advise you to do into networking effectively in the security industry, whether at a local let's say a local space, so the Algerian community, or the broad worldwide community. Obviously, we have the OWASP Algiers, the chapter of Algeria. We are trying to do our best to present you with exclusive webinars, subjects. We have some projects in mind with my colleagues and board members. We will do our best to even try to raise the maturity level of the Algerian space, and also to reach other objectives at an international level. We have our partners as well, the Cyber Cohesion, which is a platform like we announced recently. We have partnered up as OWASP Algiers and Cyber Cohesion. Hopefully very soon, probably after Ramadan, we will be bringing you an online international CTF contest based on the Cyber Cohesion principles. We have the ISC2 chapter of Algiers in Algeria, also it's present. So there are some, let's say, initiatives and organizations that are already present in Algeria that you can connect with. I mean, most of these organizations have industry experts that are well known inside the Algerian space and outside Algeria. Most of them have extensive experiences, certifications, and expertise in multiple fields. So these chapters or these organizations can obviously help you to level up, to gain more knowledge, to network and build professional relationships that might help you into landing your next job. There are some also events and forums in Algeria, like the CTO forum, the ICT Maghreb event, and a couple of more. At an international scale, there is the ISSA, the Information System Security Association, or the International Information System Security Association. Well, it's basically a global community of information system security professionals where they collaborate, they communicate, they work on different projects, like we do in OWASP, like we do in ISC2 and the others. There is also, unfortunately, I personally started the DEFCON group Algeria, the DC 11213, but unfortunately, we are not super active in the DEFCON group, but we will try our best to revive this group as well, since it exists in Algeria. There are also CTF competitions. CTF or capture the flag events can also help you into building and updating and sharpening your knowledge and skills, while at the same time building professional relationships with fellow CTF players or companies or professionals. At an international scale, well, we have ISC2 OWASP, we have ISACA, B-Sides, Black Hat, DEFCON events, like all of these initiatives, events, platforms, communities, chapters, Each one of them will help you to build and gain more skills, sharpen your skills and knowledge, and at the same time, it will help you in your career advancement by building professional relationships, like Mehdi said as an example in his OT presentation, that might help you land your job and starting your official journey as a professional. Now, in terms of resources and platforms to practice, I mean, whether it's IT, OT, blue teaming, red teaming, and so on, like obviously the most well-known platforms are already mentioned by my colleagues, like Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, Cyber Defenders, and so on. But what about specific things, like specific projects or specific labs that help you build specific or more advanced technical knowledge into a particular area? Well, at OWASP, we have two main projects, the OWASP WebGoat and the OWASP Juice Shop. I mean, these two big projects are vulnerable by design, and they can help you master web application security. Or as an example, you can land a job as a bug bounty hunter, like Hichem mentioned in his presentation. So this will help you greatly alongside the DVWA, the Damn Vulnerable Web Application. It will also help you practice the OWASP Top 10 Risks and Vulnerabilities while understanding how to perform source code analysis, how to remediate, and how to bypass some security filters. We have the GOA, the Game of Active Directory. It's dedicated to building a vulnerable Active or Windows servers and Active Directory lab in order to practice, like Hichem mentioned, penetration testing, red teaming, and so on. There are some basic challenges. The OTW, or over the wire, it's a platform dedicated for entry-level people or for fresh students that are trying to get their footholds into this field. We have the most competitive platform. We have Hack the Box. We have Try Hack Me, like Hichem mentioned, the most beginner-friendly platform. We also have VulnHub that will allow you to download locally vulnerable machines and build them inside your lab. In terms of also APIs and web, we have Pentester Lab. There is also another platform, RootMe. There is Hack This Site, CTF Time, and more. All of these platforms and projects, most of them are either available as a website, as a platform, and the others as a project in GitHub, will help you greatly in gaining more knowledge and especially sharpening your skills, whether it's blue teaming or red teaming. Now, in terms of building, let's say a vulnerable lab in order to learn systems administration, networking, and also cybersecurity, I would advise you on using this hypervisor called Proxmox locally on your PC, building your lab using the GOA, the DVWA, the OWASP WebGoat as an example, while also having an offensive machine, whether it is Kali Linux or Pirate Security OS. Now, I want to give you some project ideas that will help you build a great portfolio, because like we know, cybersecurity is super highly competitive. I mean, yes, we still need more trained professionals to get into the field, but at the same time, for the people that are already in the field, it's super competitive, whether it's for juniors or even especially for the senior profiles. Now, projects can help you. Like we said in the different slides, me and my colleagues, there are different roadmaps that you can follow in order to achieve a specific goal or a specific specialization as an example. But you can, as an example, you can study generally, you can pursue certifications to gain knowledge and to validate your skills. You can even take it to the next level by doing CTFs, but these project ideas will showcase that you have what it takes to join a company and being able to prove that you have the required fundamentals that will help you move forward. Now, some examples that I think about and I would advise you on doing: open source security tool development. Like me and Hichem and the others mentioned, you might need a way or another, directly or indirectly, to learn programming and scripting languages. So why not create and develop your own open source security tool and upload it to GitHub, showcasing it in your portfolio, your CV, as a professional tool that will help contribute to the development of open source security tools aimed at improving our cybersecurity defenses, whether it's an IDS, a vulnerability scanner, or even a tiny script that you might add to Metasploit or Nmap, and so on. Like Hichem mentioned, bug bounty programs. You can also participate in bug bounty programs or even do CVE hunting, or the common vulnerability vulnerability exposure hunting and have, as an example, a CV ID by your name. I mean, yes, it looks shiny. Some people always brag about it, but of course, it helps in your profile in landing a job. So you can participate in bug bounty programs and responsible vulnerability disclosure programs offered by different companies and platforms to identify and responsibly, of course, and ethically disclose these security vulnerabilities in their platform, software, and so on. You can also participate in security research projects. I mean, whether at OWASP, at ISC2, or the other non-profit organizations that will help you to conduct original research projects on very emerging cybersecurity topics, threat trends, or innovative security solutions. And also community security events and workshops. You guys are listening to us today. What if I tell you that a couple of years ago, me, Mehdi, and the others were also listening to other people speaking? So you can do the same like us. You can present your ideas, you can present your own conference, your own subject, your own webinar, your own workshop, and this will also help show the importance that you give to such field inside your portfolio or inside your profile. Now, ladies and gentlemen, finally, I want to present you with some little surprises, and another interesting one, especially aimed at the beginners and for the people that are trying to shift into cybersecurity, and also for people that are already in cybersecurity trying to enhance how their profile look. So, freebies, free cybersecurity certifications that I'm sure it will help you to land your job, especially if you prove yourself valuable by doing the different roadmaps that me and my colleagues discussed upon the previous slides. Well, we have the Code-Red platform from EC Council. They have 3 main programs that will give you a certificate of completion for 3 different programs. It will help show in your profile that you have the basics in terms of ethical hacking essentials, the basics of digital forensics essentials, and network defense essentials. We have some vendor specific free certifications. Qualys, as an example, a leading company in terms of vulnerability analysis and vulnerability management. They have a program called the QCS, the Qualys Certified Specialist. They have a very good certification called QCS VMDR that I really recommend for you, especially after doing the Security Plus, the CH, the different roadmaps that we have discussed. You can take this one to show that you have good knowledge in terms of vulnerability management, detection, and response. There is the ArcX, another company that specializes in cyber threat intelligence. They have a free program training and cybersecurity certification called CTI 101, dedicated for entry-level people inside the threat intelligence field. We have Skillfront. They have a free certification in terms of GRC, the ISO or the ISO 27001, following the latest version of the standard 2022 ISMS Associate. It will help teach you the fundamentals of building an information security management system like we discussed before, and it is a professional certification as an associate level in GRC. We have Coursera. They have some free courses and programs made by the leading organizations like IBM Cybersecurity Analyst. I strongly recommend it. There is the Microsoft Security Analyst and Google Security Analyst. I try to put these 3 in order, in the following order, because I have tried actually all of these certifications, but here the IBM is much better than Microsoft and Google. I have to remind you, we at OWASP, we are a non-profit organization and we are vendor neutral. So I'm giving you advice based on my experience, my skills, and expertise in the field. So some people might like Google's program than Microsoft, but I would say that IBM comes first, then Microsoft, and then Google. There is also Fortinet. I know some of you might say that NSE is different now. They have another new program of trainings and certifications, but the concept still exists. They still have free entry-level cybersecurity certifications and trainings in terms of network security and some Fortinet, let's say, materials like FortiGate, firewall, and so on. We have Cisco as well by their 2 platforms, NetAcad, which stands for Networking Academy. It has around 8 or 7 free courses with certifications, and the Skills for All, also I believe made by Cisco, where they also have other cybersecurity certifications and trainings. And now the biggest surprise of this webinar would be the ISC2CC and the OWASP Algiers chapter. Let me explain. In terms of the ISC2, the International Information System Certification, Information System Security Certification Consortium, they have developed a new training dedicated by a program of certifying 1 million people in terms of cybersecurity. It is an entry-level program dedicated to showcasing people different aspects of cybersecurity. They call it the CC certification, or the Certified in Cybersecurity. Why did we mention it here? Okay, first, it is a free program and it's a free education, so you can take it freely. Okay, but you can also get the voucher code of the exam freely from the internet, but we will guide you and we will give you the voucher code of the ISC2CC. My colleagues, and especially Hichem Berbesh, at the end of this event, we will try to launch another Google form where you can show your interest, and then we will send you a free voucher to pass the ISC2CC. Now, the surprise here isn't actually in the voucher, but actually in the training. Me and my other board members are thinking about providing an online dedicated free online training in the CC program, probably after Ramadan. We will also publish the details about this in our social network pages of the OWASP Algiers chapter. Now, I mentioned the OWASP Algiers chapter at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are excited or are interested about joining, or are already interested in the OWASP Foundation and are thinking about joining us in the OWASP Algiers chapter, then you are in the right place, because soon, inshallah, we will be launching an open for membership where you can apply. Some of you might join us as simple members, and the other can take even higher places as board members. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank each one of you for coming today and for listening. You can contact us through this email or by browsing our official OWASP Foundation chapter webpage. Now, I'm gonna leave it to Hichem Berbesh. If you have questions, you can drop them, and we will do our best to answer each one of you. Okay, so the first question that I see here is from Ahmed Mohammed, saying, can you please publish those slides and tell us where we can find them? Yes, we will do. As like I said, Hichem Berbesh will be sharing these slides alongside a couple of other insights soon inside our social media pages. So stay tuned, following us in the different social platforms. Muhammad Yassin saying, at which point can we get an entry-level job? I'm gonna leave this one to my colleagues. Maybe Mehdi or Hichem can take the lead answering this question.
Yes, sure. I mean, I think the entry-level job, maybe as security analyst or a security engineer, as I told you, or as I explained in the roadmap, you need at least the basics of the networking and system administration and the security, of course, cybersecurity knowledge. So I can say after getting the most known certification, of course, as Amine said, that there is a very competitive in the field of cybersecurity, so you need to certify. If you have the ability to certify, you need to certify. At least you have the CCNA and the Security Plus if you can do it. And the EGBT, it is a very good cybersecurity and penetration, junior penetration testing certification, and you can apply with this certification for entry-level job.
All right. Thank you, Hichem, for the answer. If I may add another comment. Actually, you said at which point can we get an entry-level job? But the thing is, there are multiple entry-level jobs, like we discussed, like we presented with my colleagues. There are different specialties, so you have to ask a specific question so we can guide you to the best of our ability. So whether it's offensive or defensive or GRC, I mean, there are different track paths for entry-level jobs. So getting a job, like Hichem mentioned, At a certain point, you will obviously have to certify by doing 1, 2, or as much as you can certifications. But it's not about that. It's about also showcasing a profile with strong projects, showcasing a profile with strong activities like participating in CDFs, organizing events, and doing these types of things, and also your contacts in the industry. That's why networking is super important. Guys, we are talking about cybersecurity. This is not networking or systems administration. I mean, it's a crucial and critical field. I mean, at some point, they might not hire you just because they don't know you, because they don't trust you. So having contacts in the community or doing these networking advices that I gave you before will strongly help you into landing your job and even going further in the industry. Okay, we have another question where he said you haven't discussed HTB certs like CPTS, CBBH, and CDSA, and so on. And thank you, Hichem, for the presentation. Okay, so just since Hichem already, I see that he already answered you, I'm gonna give you another perspective. We are OWASP, we are not a certification body, and we do not promote any kind of certification, whether it's HTB or another one. That's one. Two, Hichem mentioned the most famous and most practical certifications that have huge value when you have them inside your profile. Like he already mentioned, the HTB certifications are just new and they might prove your knowledge, but in reality, as a recruiter, they won't prove a thing. They won't give you this credibility that other certifications might give you. So you better focus on certifications that are already known. And of course, I wouldn't say no doing like HTB certs or any other. I mean, they are all helpful and they will provide you at least a minor value either way. Tariq, thank you, Hichem. Okay. Is there any other question? Okay, so Nacer. So also the presentation, please, if you can. Like I said, I'm gonna say it again. Hichem Berbesh will share with you the hopefully the recorded session of the webinar and surely the presentation slides. The CC certification require an annual fee, I guess. Yes, that's what separates practical certifications than the others, because there are two types of certifications. The type where you pass an exam or a lab or something and you never get back to them. I'm not really a fan of that because it doesn't prove that you are doing continuous improvement, and that's why the CC certification requires an annual fee and annual CPE credits. And yes, it requires a $50 annual fee, but we will give you the free voucher to pass the exam. And if you are selected, of course, after the giveaway or the, I don't know, we will see with Hichem, we will try to maximize the number of attendees in our coming next CC free training. So yeah, it requires the $50 to acquire the cert, but only after successfully passing the exam, which costs $200, which we will give you a free voucher to do so. Okay, so thank you, Karim. Thank you too for listening. Do you know if the Algerian government is planning to take more initiatives in terms of cybersecurity, and if eventually it plans to create a dedicated body for national cybersecurity? If already existed, could you please clarify? Well, to be honest with you, Algeria in terms of cybersecurity is a little bit complex than the other countries, but yes, we are doing our efforts and our collaborative parties into introducing different types and concepts of organizations and collaborative projects, but I cannot speak for the government. I speak for myself, for my team, and for the OWASP Algiers chapter and the OWASP Foundation as a global member. So since I'm not related to the government, I cannot really answer your question, but to summarize it, yes, I believe there are some initiatives, some that implicate us directly, some others that do not implicate us, but yes, there are some efforts at the Algerian country as a whole. Nacer also asked, what do I need for SOC analyst entry-level job? Well, I'm not sure if you have attended the webinar or not, because we already explained that. So I'm gonna pass to the next question. Cybersecurity is not an entry-level job, to be honest. Well, honestly, I cannot agree and I cannot disagree, because yes, cybersecurity is a highly competitive or technical in some sort field that is not really friendly with the entry level. But the advantage is we as professionals have these types of chapters and communities and events that will facilitate the entry of fresh graduates or beginners into this field. So you can make it like each one of us. I mean, we all started out at some point. So yeah. I mentioned CBTS and the others because they are cheaper than OffSec certs. Okay, well, doing certifications because it's cheap, and doing certification because it proves your knowledge, and doing a certification because it is prestigious, and doing a certification because it is needed are 4 different goals that you have to define based on yourself. So being a cheaper certification doesn't mean it is better, and also being an expensive certification doesn't mean it's better at the same time. So it's different from a case to another and to your own needs and skills that you want to acquire, or the skills that you want to improve. Mohammed Yassin asked a question about, can a graduation degree in computer science secure a job in this field with a basic knowledge of cybersecurity, considering we had cybersecurity and networking modules during my coursework? Okay, well, first of all, I don't know if you studied computer science in Algeria or Europe or the United States or whatever, but a computer science graduation degree, it doesn't hurt and it doesn't truly make you outstand. So I would advise on finishing your studies, but don't only focus on that. Try to, at the same time, like Hichem talked, try to pass some certifications, try to join these type of chapters, these type of initiatives that will help you greatly more than the academic computer science degree. But yes, to answer your question, yes, you might be able to secure a job in this field, but it's gonna be hard for you if you only focus on a computer science degree. Do you think that university degree is mandatory to get a chance for an internship in this field? To answer your question, no. A computer or a university degree in general is not mandatory. It is nice to have, and you better have a computer degree or a university degree, because it will help facilitate your process and make your profile looks a little bit nice, probably, than someone who doesn't have a university degree, but it is not mandatory. Tariq, I don't think that it requires a university degree, but certifications are the way to prove your knowledge. Oh, obviously, of course. I mean, a university degree will show that you have committed 5 years, you have studied the foundational stuff, you have some ideas about the philosophy stuff of the computer science and so on, but it does not prove your skills nor your needed cybersecurity knowledge in this industry nowadays. So a university degree alone is not enough. Superbe initiative, j'espère le mieux pour les événements à venir. Inch'Allah, Akram, merci beaucoup. Tariq, and the most is practice and prove that you are of course, because cybersecurity is about practicing, and that's why we tried our best to demonstrate the best and most known certifications. At the same time, some resources where you can learn, practice, and validate your skills. Thank you to Karim. It's great, and also it's great to have each one of you with us here today. Sahar Ramadan خويا, shukran. For the others, if you have a question or something that you want to clarify or something, you can leave it in the comments. And yes, Sudomod also mentioned that Discord will be great. I forgot to mention, because it will take some time, but we at OWASP Algiers chapter, we will be creating and having our own Discord server soon, inshallah, where you can join us as a community. So if you have a question, like I said, you can leave it in the comments. If not, I'm gonna close this webinar in 5 minutes. Thank you to Yasmin. It's our pleasure to serve each one of you. Thank you, everyone. In 5 minutes, we will close this webinar. So if you have a question, make sure to keep it down quickly. Thank you, Mehdi. Thank you for your OT presentation. It was super insightful. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.